the greatest ally for fairness and equity is our guest speaker, my friend, Barney Frank.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say that Mark said that he would vote the way I have voted over the years. We had another bond until fairly recently. Mark and I kind of dressed alike. Then I became chairman of the committee, and they told me I had to kind of clean up the act. So, but I am delighted to be here to celebrate 45 years of excellent service by Citizens for Citizens. This is an organization that is dedicated to helping people who have a legitimate need for help, and does it in a way. And let's be very clear, you know, when you're judging an organization, you look at two things. What are the good things it's done, but also, what are the things it hasn't done, in particular, things that people criticize. We are all aware that many programs funded with public money are run less well than they should be. And we all read the stories. The media likes very much to be able to write about how things weren't well done. You can look for the negative stories that anybody's been able to produce about this, and you won't find them. And to be able to do so much work over such a range, and to involve so much money, and to have done it both effectively and as honestly and efficiently is a great tribute. And Mark Sullivan deserves a great amount of credit for having run this operation so well. So do all of you. Social Security and Medicare are two of the great accomplishments of this country coming together. Before Medicare and Social Security, unless you were unusually wealthy, as you got older, you could expect to be poor. Poverty was what people got if you were lucky to live long enough, because the death came earlier, and we've improved that through health. Social Security and Medicare have substantially reduced poverty among older Americans. I do not understand why people think we have to apologize for that. And we are told, well, and it's true, we do have a deficit. And the people here are very responsible, and they worry about their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and don't want them to inherit a bad situation. Of course not. We don't want them to grow up in a world in which you can't get Social Security, in which your Medicare is cut back, and we are working to prevent that. The question then is, and we have another situation which many of you are concerned about, because you're concerned also about your family, and that's the lack of jobs available for people today. The unemployment situation is far higher than it should be. There are things we can do in the short term to promote employment. Mark talked about the stimulus bill, and I can tell you there are police officers and firefighters on the streets of southeastern Massachusetts that wouldn't have been there if we didn't have the stimulus bill. There is environmental cleanup. There are highway buildings going forward. There are street repavings that happen because of this bill. Now, I believe we can do more and should do more because unemployment is very unfair to people. The question is, though, how can we afford it? And that's the somewhat controversial issue I want to raise with you now. When World War II ended, which people here will remember, the United States was the only country in the world that was still on its feet. Everybody else had either been defeated in the war, fortunately, the aggressor countries, or had exhausted itself in participating in that defeat. The American military, the American economy from 1941 through 45 saved civilization against the greatest threat it knew. Hitler, Japanese, Mussolini. Immediately thereafter, we confronted another danger as a nation, which was a very brutal Soviet regime led by a monster, Joseph Stalin, and then by successors who also had no respect for freedom of speech, for freedom of religion, for family ties. So the United States, after leading the coalition to defeat the Nazis, then had to take the lead in a worldwide coalition to confront the communists. And the rest of the world got used to America as the protector. They got used to America as the country that everybody could look to take care of them. At first, that was necessary because the others had been hurt so bad. The problem is that it still goes on today. When the Soviet Union has been defeated, there are other countries in the world that are potentially hostile, but none have the power to destroy us the way we had 30 years ago. We have wealthy allies now in Western Europe, in Japan, and elsewhere. The problem is that the rest of the world is still very happy to let America carry the burden of defending everybody, everywhere, every time, every place. And it's time for us to say, no, we can't keep doing that. We can't afford it, and it's not necessary. Yes, we have to fight the terrorists. I have to tell you, unfortunately, you can't defeat the terrorists with nuclear submarines. I wish you could, because then we would have won already. They don't have any. Defeating terrorism is a tougher and trickier job, but doesn't cost nearly as much. Mark mentioned the wars. I will tell you, I will start when I'm told, oh no, we can't afford to put more money into keeping cities and towns with their public employees. We can't afford commuter rail. We can't afford to speed up the cleanups. We can't afford building the roads, tearing down the infrastructure on the waterfront that was badly done in Fall River. So we can go ahead with the new kind of approach that lets us use the seaport in a way that will produce jobs and improve the environment. Although we have gotten one thing I can tell you, and there was an old joke that they used to talk about General Franco. I think on Saturday Night Live, they would have reported, General Franco is still dead. Well, so's the LNG plant. It's still dead, and it's getting deader every day. There will be no LNG plant. The Congress will make that very clear. But we have some needs. They said, well, we can't afford it. Well, the fact is we apparently can afford to build bridges and fix sewers and build schools. The problem is we're doing it in Iraq. The problem is we're doing it elsewhere in the world where, frankly, we aren't even appreciated for it. I think the time has come now to finish the job President Obama started, I give him credit for starting it, and bring all the troops home from Iraq. We have 49,000 non-combat troops. You know what the problem is, and we have some leaders in the veterans movement here, you know what the problem is when we send people over into a battle zone and we declare they're non-combat troops? The bad guys don't know they're non-combat troops. Calling them non-combat troops, these brave people, men and women who serve our country, it doesn't prevent people from shooting at them. I thought the Iraq War was a mistake in the first place because they didn't have weapons of mass destruction and they weren't tied into the terrorism. But whatever you thought about it now, Saddam Hussein is dead. It's time to come back. You know why we're there? We're there to mediate a political situation that they can't solve themselves. We can't run democracy for them. So it's time, and I will tell you that tens of billions of dollars will be spent between now and the end of next year keeping 50,000 non-combat troops in a situation which is unfair to them. We could much more cheaply, inexpensively, fight that than what we're now doing. And people need to understand this. The choice is now, do we acquiesce to those who tell us we have to cut back on Social Security and Medicare? Hey, those of us already on them, probably when they're talking about, they're talking about making big cutbacks in Social Security years from now. I'm not comfortable saying, okay, it's okay for me, but I'm going to let the younger generation, people in their 40s and 50s now, not benefit. There are people who talk about cutting off Medicare for anybody now under 55. They don't get Medicare. Let them go into the private market, or as Mark said, let them go into the stock market for their retirement. So we have an alternative, and the alternative is for America to defend itself, to make sure that the young people who are sent into battle are well equipped, but that they're not sent into battle where they're not wanted and they're not needed and where other people should be doing a better job. That, I believe, is the issue that we have to confront, and that has both a long-term benefit in staving off these attacks on Social Security and Medicare, and in the short term, it allows us to spend the money that we ought to spend as a country so that people are not unemployed, so that hardworking people who want to work get a chance to do it, and that we get the benefit in highways and in transportation and environmental cleanup and in public safety that we can only get if we come together and do it. Thank you.